Shields and swords, feel the wars, fighting my blood, down to the core. Warriors from medieval age, fear the reign of night brigades. Crusades into the room, moving through the temples and tombs. Scared and placed, prepare to face Professor Awesome and the minions of doom. 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 Professor Awesome and the minions of doom.
Hello, minions. So shortly I will be heading off to DragonCon 2019 to speak, and I've got some other activities I'm doing, probably be having some giveaways, so if you meet me there, ask me for some free swag, I might have some for you. But aside from all those things, I want to address a different audience than normal today. Normally this netcast is for a popular audience or for students. It's for non-experts. But today I want to talk to academics like me who want to go out and talk in public to these kind of public fora, whether they be big events like DragonCon or speak to your small book clubs, your local libraries, whether you are doing science outreach and education for the public or humanities like I do. No matter what it is, I think academics often have a difficult time with this. And I want to talk about how to do it, not why to do it. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was having to explain to people why you would want to do this. I think today, most academics get it. The academics who still turn up their nose at public outreach, I have the sense turn up their nose not because they don't think it's valuable, but because they're afraid they won't be good at it or have discovered they're not good at it. And that's okay. First of all, we're not all good at everything. And second, like any other skill, it's something you develop over time. I've been doing this kind of public outreach for a long time. So how do you act? How do you talk? Well, the problem is that we really have two models that we use. And speaking at a public event like DragonCon or Comic-Con or Gen Con or smaller events as well, these are different than what we normally do. So on a day-to-day basis, we get up and we talk to students. But students are a very different audience than the kind of people you'll find at a con. Also, we get up less daily, but often to talk to other scholars. That also is a very different audience. And so you have to think about it very differently. And so basically the two mistakes I see people making when they're trying to do public outreach is the first one, the most common one, is they're afraid that some other academic will see them and will call them out for a lack of rigor. And so they present to a popular audience like it is another group of scholars. That's a big mistake. First of all, could another scholar call you out and say it's not rigorous for you to do this? I suppose it's possible. I've never actually seen someone do that in a public forum. But even if someone were there, I've often heard other scholars presenting information that I know a great deal about, that I'm an expert in. And they present it in a way that I think I wouldn't have said it that way. But I also recognize this is not another audience of scholars. They don't come with that same kind of very deep well of expertise in this one area. So you've got to address the audience in a way that's not condescending, but doesn't assume that they're already experts in everything. Well, we have another model for that, and that model is the student model. And we do that every day, and we're used to that. And if you address a popular group like students, that's less egregious as a problem than addressing them like another group of scholars, which will be boring and frankly incomprehensible to them. But it also doesn't quite fit when you're talking to them like a student, because a student arguably is vaguely interested in the subject matter, either because it's their major, or in a case of a general education class, they're just there to get an education. But they drag themselves out of bed to show up that day because they are kind of forced to. Even if it's something that they like. I remember being a student in classes I loved in my major. I was crazy interested. A half hour before class, I didn't want to go to class. I wanted to do something else, frivolous instead, or nap or whatever. So they're there. Students are there to some degree because they have to be. And we expect them to be prepared. So even though a student, today I will be teaching Beowulf. Earlier I taught the Odyssey. And I know that there's going to be a percentage of students who haven't actually done the reading. And because we're only in week 2 or 3 of the semester, they haven't yet suffered the consequences for their GPA in not doing the reading. But I still talk to them as if they have done the reading. I still behave as if they have, first because the ones who are destined to flunk out aren't really the ones I'm talking to. I'm talking to the ones who are, doing what they need to do to be there. But the other reason is we begin with this baseline. When you're dealing with a public audience, a lot of times it's something that they have read or seen or that they know a little bit about. However, it might be something that they read 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, when they were in high school. It's just something they have maybe a general interest in. And so you can't assume that they remember any of the details. And so you, in a sense, have to talk to them, assuming that they don't really remember any of those important details. We're going to come back to that in a second. But the flip side of that is, unlike your student groups, these guys really want to be there. If you're speaking at a library, unless they're a library employee, they came to the library either specifically to see you or because they want to get a book and they're passing by and they hear you talking and they want to come in and hear what you have to say. Same is true for a con. There are lots of fun and exciting things going on at DragonCon. Someone who's coming to hear one of the sessions that I'm speaking in or moderating, they are really interested in that subject matter, because otherwise they could go watch a bunch of, people in Boba Fett cosplay dabbing or something, or whatever kind of silliness is going on at that time. They could go down to the game room and play tabletop games or video game contests, or go up and meet their favorite celebrities and get autographs. They could do all those things, but they came to your session, whether it's a small library group, a book club, or a huge con. They came to your session, they're interested. And so you have to walk into those situations and speak to them as someone who shares your passion, but might not know the details. And that's really the difference. When you're talking to a student group, you're talking to someone who you expect to know the details, but you're in a sense trying to build their passion for the thing. When you're dealing with this kind of group, the entire situation is reversed. I hope you can notice sometimes on the same channel, I end up having to post things that I'm going to use for classes. And you might notice a really, to me it's obvious, it might be subtle to the viewer, different vibe in the way that I approach something that's intended for a class and something that's intended for a popular audience. The other thing that you need to remember is if you're bringing an academic approach to something that's part of popular culture, you should expect to be the person in the room who knows the details of that the least. So, for example, many years in a row, I spoke about Stargate, the Stargate universe. There used to be its own track in DragonCon, and I would speak about that all the time, many years in a row. And whenever I did that, I liked Stargate. I guess I would even go so far as to say I was a fan. I really liked it, but not like these guys. I did not like enough to organize an entire track, to own, to cosplay in it, to own all sorts of things that evoke it. That wasn't me. And so, ironically, in that case, I was bringing them new information about, say, the Norse gods that are referenced in Stargate. But if I wanted to talk about a detailed reference to something, I could say, well, in season 3, episode 4, when this character says XYZ, everybody in the room knows that part. And so you have these weird, interesting moments where you're the one who knows the least. And that really offers for the academic the best opportunity for engagement, because what I find works best if you're speaking to a group like that, where you're bringing academic approach to something in popular culture, is to assume they know more than you do about the topic, but they don't know about your approach. And so what you can do is bring them a general framework of thinking about it. And then the best place for engagement is for them to then be able to say, yeah, and I see what you're saying in this other episode, or in this graphic novel version of the thing, or whatever it is that you're talking about. And you will find that whatever your thesis is, either they'll have some interesting ways to question that, or they will give you information that you never had to really deepen it, make it more complicated, make it more subtle, make it more complex. They really act in a way that's different than other scholars do, but also that's very different than students do. And I think when you do that, you're really going to be able to engage with the audience. And I'd say that is the most important element, is this element of engagement. They are there. The audience is there at any of these popular events because they want to be engaged with you on this subject. They're not getting a grade. They're not taking a test. They're not hoping that you tell them something that they can use in their research later. They're there because they're really interested in this thing and they want to engage with someone else who knows a lot about it and can help them appreciate it more, and also with whom they can have a back and forth. And that's really what you want to seek out in these. So that's my general advice for other academics who are going to be presenting, not just this week, but at all the many things all year round, all the opportunities you have for public engagement, whether you're podcasting, netcasting like I am now, speaking for a public group, always keep those things in mind. And I think you'll find that it's rewarding, not just rewarding in a sense for your career, but it's also rewarding because you'll find other people out there who don't normally fall into the academic world who will keep your mind sharp and have lots of interesting things to say to you. So, Minions, for those of you who I will see at DragonCon this weekend, I'll probably leave, maybe not tonight, but tomorrow morning. I'll be there tomorrow, which will be Friday, I think. Saturday, Sunday, maybe Monday. So for those of you who I'll be seeing there, come see me, and I might have some swag for you. For the rest of you, I hope you enjoy this, but more importantly, I hope you reach out, if you're not an academic, to academics who want to talk to you, who want to engage with you, and engage with them. And if you're an academic who's thought about engagement, but you're not sure how to do it right, do it badly at first until you figure out how to do it right. Because the truth is, we all have a lot to learn from one another.